We are now on patch 13.20b, and here is the strongest comps in the meta and how to play them. Even after the hard nerf on Multicaster, they are still currently one of the most played comps in Master Plus. But the huge difference from the B patch is that you can no longer force it no matter what, but it's still completely fine to play if you're not contested, or just contested by one other player. If you haven't had success with it so far, here is the basic how to play it. So you want to stabilize at level 6, and you will do it with this board. You will take out Jarvan before you get him. So what you want to do is to stabilize at level 6, and you want to do it with 4 Multicasters, and then you will play Galio in the front line and then adding in Poppy. So you're getting the 3 Demacias and getting the Radiant item on Galio. From here you want to have Twisted Fate to 3-star, and you want to have Galio to 3-star. You want to itemize a blue buff on Twisted Fate and 2 tank items on Galio. That could be the Stone Plate, it could also be Bramble Vest, it could be Dragon's Claw, and it could also be a Warmonk. But something like that, and then you're getting the 3rd item from Demacia. When you're getting these 2 units to 3-star, you want to go up in levels and hit level 7. Meanwhile you are rolling for these units, you will also hold all the Vel'Koz units. But when you hit level 7, you will add in Swain, which you will always hold for a 2-star as well on your bench. And whenever you hit Jarvan, you will put Jarvan in instead of Poppy. And from here you just want to get everyone up in stars. That means Sona will get 3-star, Talir, Swain, Vel'Koz obviously, and a 2-star for Jarvan. So this is kind of the end game board that you're looking for. In this comp you are normally playing with Twisted Fate as your main carry. And he will also be the legend that you're playing, since you want specific items. So again, as mentioned, what we want to do is looking for a blue buff first, the 2 tank items on Galio first, and then we start itemizing Twisted Fate from there. After this, you can either put damage items that are similar to Twisted Fate on Vel'Koz, but you should also be aware of that you're needing something like an anti-heal that could be a Morello on Sona or Jarvan. You could also put a Sunfire on Jarvan, but then you will not play the Morello on Sona. Then you want a anti-magic resist, and that could be a static shift on Sona. And else you could play a spark on Jarvan. I do prefer the static shift, but else spark is also alright. Other great items is just something similar to this. You could also pop a blue buff on Talir just for more stun. But else that is basically it. Everything that's buff up TF or the whole team or give you more time to cast will be great augments. That could be Magic Wand for more damage, or this specific for Multicasters, which is just scaling up. Still a super good comp. You shouldn't play it if your 4 players are contesting it, but if you're not contested or just one other player is playing it, you could go for this comp for sure. Oh, and one last thing is that we are normally not getting further than level 7, but are we getting to level 8 or 9 if we are really contested and have to go up in levels instead of 3-star in the units? We could put in something like a Seer just for the extra traits, but we could also put in something like Rise. So one of these 2 units for level 8 or 9, but mainly just this. Next up we have Gunners with Piltovers, and if we are getting 3 of the Piltover units in the start of the game, we will always go for this comp. So what we want to do is getting the 3 units, and then we will start making a lose streak for at least 7 rounds. This will give us 20 stacks on T-Hex, and from there you want to cash out, and you do that by winning a round. Then you get a lot of loot and items, and you will have a massive spike, and then you will just go up in levels and win the whole game. So again, you want to go for a lose streak, and you could do that by different ways. One thing you can do is not to slam items, but still building up traits, so you're still killing a unit or 2. Another thing you can do is you can put up your units something like this, or playing without Vi, or playing without Echo, and then trapping the melee unit in the corner, so you're making sure that you're losing the rounds. But that's only something that you do if you are scared of winning a round. The most important thing is just losing, and that is basically it. So what you want to do is to build up around Piltovers, Gunners, and Rogues. And then you want to put in something like Graves for Gunners and Rogues. And from here you also want to put in Jinx And this could be your level 6 board. When you decide that you want to win a round, you can either choose to go for a Jinx Jace duo carry, or you can go level 7 and put in Aphelios and itemize him. So this could be your board if you're trying to cash out at level 6. That means you've been rolling for these units to 2-star as well, but mainly these units is the most important. You will need to have a strong board when you do the cash out. Scout out the game through the whole game to make sure that you are losing every round until you kind of want to cash out and win the round. Another thing that you could do, as mentioned, was just to play around Aphelios. Then you go level 7 instead and get in Aphelios, and you also want to play Sejuani. And then you're just putting items over to Aphelios instead. And then playing for this board with the 4 gunners. I do prefer this one since you are sometimes contested on the Jinx. And I just think this is an overall more stable board. You will also put on items on Sejuani, and that should just be the strongest tank items that you can find. So after level 7, the units that you are looking for at level 8 and 9 would be Gangplank. And you can even take Jinx out instead. You can play for Sion, and you can play for Aatrox. And then your board could end up looking like something like this. And whenever you find Heimerdinger, you will put him in and take Vi out. And if you want to force this board, you could play for a legend with this little guy and just have way more time to building up your big cash out on T-Rex. What else? Play around Gunner augments. And if you want to force this comp, and yes, you can do that, you can watch my guide on that, which I've made a full video on. So watch that video if you want to master this comp. It is a really, really strong comp in this patch. Next up we have Noxus with Mordekaiser, and here it's just all about getting the 7 Noxus plus Mordekaiser. And that also means that if we can get an emblem before we're finding Sion, we can get to 7 in the trait way faster. So that is super great, and you will just have it on any other units that fits in the comp until you're hitting Aatrox, and then you put the emblem on him. But how we want to build up this board is just playing around the Noxus, and normally we play around 5 until we hit it in the 7th one. And we want to have attack speed items on Mordekaiser. Right now, Rapid Fire Cannon is the most popular one and probably also one of the best ones, but else you can just play whatever at the 3rd item. If you're having 2 of these, you can even put him way further back in the corner. But else the main thing is just to play around him and then putting in items on Swain. That could be tank items, but it could also be these kind of items that benefits the whole team. So Redemption, Sunfire for anti-heal, and shredding magic resist with a spark. Augments that we're looking for could be something like Noxus Crest and Total Domination, the specific one for Noxus. And you could obviously go for Earth as your legend, since you really want the emblem. But else, before finding Sion and Aatrox, you could play around something like Nasus. And you should also consider not playing the comp where you are 3-starring all the low-cost units. Normally you see something like a Cassiopeia, Samira, even Nefari and Swain to 3-star. Normally you would only do that if you're getting the specific augment for Swain, but that have been nerfed. So this comp where you're putting them to 3-star is not that good anymore. Just more focused about playing around Mordekaiser. That's for sure. So again, building up, putting items on Mordekaiser, get to level 7 as fast as possible. Play around Nasus as well before we're finding Sion and Aatrox. And if you have an emblem, you will put it on Nasus before we're finding Aatrox, and then we just move the items over. Really, really good comp in this patch. And if you're getting to level 9, for capping out, you could play Heimerdinger as always, but you could also just play around something like Azir just for the extra traits, especially when you're having strategists on Swain. And remember, before we're finding Aatrox, we are playing one more Shurima unit, and that's gonna be the Nasus with all the items. So we are buffing up him in that way. So next up, we have the new Invoker comp with Neeko and Soraka as the main carries. And normally we saw Karma as the main carry. That comp is still played sometimes, but the new and better one is the one with Neeko and Soraka as the main carries. So this time we are building up around Soraka to a 3-star and Neeko as well. You want to go to level 7 as fast as possible, and then we will play without Ahri, obviously. and then we probably don't get Cassandra that early as well. So we need another Bastion unit, and the best one we can get is probably Kassadin. So this could be your board at level 7. And as mentioned, we want to have Neeko and Soraka to 3-star. Are we finding enough unit of Taric? We'll get him to 3-star as well, and the same go with Karma. But the main thing is Neeko and Soraka. Don't hold these units too much if not needed, especially not Karma if she is not having items. So you will prioritize to have items to Soraka and Neeko. And Soraka want a scaling one, so Archangel is great. You also want Sojourn for building up mana. And if you are combining it with this Tooth item, you are getting tons of mana, and that makes her cast all the time and makes your team staying alive. And the longer your team is staying alive, the longer the Archangel will scale up. So that's like the basic thing around it. When it comes to Neeko, we want to build some sort of healing tank items. Maybe think a little bit of a bruiser items, but Titans is super good on Neeko. You can even build 2 of them, and as the third item should be some sort of healing item. That could be Bloodthirster. It could also be a Gunblade. You could even thinking about building one of the new items, which giving her a shield in the start, and when the shield disappears, she will get some more AP. If you're building that, you will take out one of the Titans, but something like this. Taric will build something like Redemption, some sort of anti-heal, and some sort of anti-magic resist. Getting extra damage items, put them on Karma, and when you get in Ahri at some point, you can put the items over, especially if you're not having Karma to 3-star. And the best items for Ahri would be something like this. Gunblade is not the greatest one, but in this comp it could actually work, since you just want your front line to stay alive. Meanwhile, Soraka is building up. Super fun comp to play. Yeah, and whenever you are finding Cassandra, you will take him in instead. Should we end up getting level 9, we will put in something like Rise, since he fits the comp really, really well. Are we getting an emblem? We could also go for 6 in the trait. And else we are just playing for something like Loving Invocation and whatever suit this board. It could be more damage to the front line with a Magic Wand. It could also be whatever fits the front line. And we don't really have any specific legends that we want to play for. So Pro is probably the best option for this one. But else, if you haven't played with the 3-star Neeko and the 3-star Soraka before, give it a try. It's so much fun. Next up, we have Shurima Azir, and here we are playing all the Shurima units and Azir as our main carry. So before we get into this board, we will also play all of the units, since we, first of all, don't have an emblem early, and we are probably not having Cassandra early as well. So we are playing for the 6 in the Shurimas, and then we are just adding in whatever units that fits the board the best. And that will often be something like Jarvan. So what you can do is to stabilize at level 7, go level 8 as fast as possible, and then add in Jarvan. And whenever you're getting Cassandra, you will take him in instead of Cass. Before we're finding Aatrox, we could also play around something like Fiora. We could also play around something like Sona. But these is the main units that we are going for, and if you can get to 6 in the trait and get up to level 8 as fast as possible, add in Aatrox, add in Cassandra. This comp will be super popular in the rest of this patch, so if you haven't played it out before, do that for sure. Items that we're looking for is just tank items, the strongest one that you can find for him. Keep him alive, he will be your main frontline, and put Aatrox next to him so he is getting the buff from him. Protector's Vow is super great items for Jarvan and Cassandra, mainly because they are making sure that you are getting more cast off by giving them a bit of mana and also giving them a bit of a shield. One other thing to mention is that, as I said before, Sona and Fiora is something you can play around, and that also gives Jarvan one more item, and that will be a Radiant item that makes him alive for way longer. That's a super good thing to do as well. But then you're probably only playing for 4 Shurimas at that point. When it comes to Azir, we probably building something like a static shift from the early game to Shred. And then we're just building classic AP and attack speed items. Tooth and Gauntlet have been the most popular ones And what you could also do is obviously just play a Rage Blade, which is a common item. We have normally seen something like Gunblade on Azir before, but right now we just want him to be the main damage dealer and letting the frontline tank. So build damage items. It could also be something like this instead. But attack speed and AP items is the main thing. Augments that we're looking for could be something like Martyr, which are buffing up the other units whenever they are dying. And we could also go for the Shurima crest, obviously, and put it on Jarvan. And if you should force this comp, it started getting more popular to play something like Draven. And that is just because the early game board with 4 Shurimas is super good. And you can start snowballing really hard. And if you're snowballing with something like Spoil of War, we can build tons of gold and just getting up in levels really, really fast. Are we getting to level 9 and having an emblem? We can start taking out some of the weaker units, and that could be Renekton. And then we are, as mentioned before, playing something like Sona and Fiora instead. And playing for this board, it is stronger than the other one. Another option is that you are getting to level 9 and don't have an emblem for Shurima. Then you are playing around all these units and just skipping Renekton as soon as you're getting Shen. And then playing for this board. Also a super strong board. Other comps that you should have an eye out for that I have already covered in other videos is something like Sorcerer Silco, Mordekaiser, Bruiser, Cho'Gath, Demacia, and Vanquisher. I will not be covering them in this video, but if you still want to see how to play the other comps, you can go to one of my other videos and see how to play them. If it's your first time around my videos, I do make tier lists like this one, top 5 comps on the patch that you should play, guides on specific comps like the one I have done with Piltover. If it sounds like something for you, please consider subscribing. You can always change your mind. That was all for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next guide.